What up, what up, what up? Hey, everybody, hope you're doing well. Hey, I just want to let you know, I know everybody can't always support and donate to the podcast, but hey, if you can do a one-time donation, I put up a Buy Me a Coffee link in this description of the podcast. So if you go to the description of the podcast, it'll be at the bottom, and you can just go to that link, and you can buy me a cup of coffee, or two if you want. And that would just help support the show, and I can wake up a little bit more and bring you more info. So thanks for listening to the podcast. If you can donate, that would be much appreciated. And let's get on to the show. What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Lockdown Universe, home of the bizarre, peculiar, and unheard of stories of UFO, legend, and paranormal lore. Welcome back, welcome back. Happy to be back. Hopefully you guys are doing excellent, taking care of yourselves. Today I want to talk about the intergalactic war, apparently, that the Nephilim, or the Nephilim, however you want to call them, states that they are waging against God. Now, I know that sounds kind of ridiculous to say an intergalactic war with God. It'd have to be like an interdimensional war, but that's the wording that has been used. And I'll tell you all about it. So, apparently, there's an individual named Lieutenant Colonel Greg Renrich. He's from South Carolina, and he states that he worked at S4, which is one of the bases that's right next to Area 51. It's part of that Papoose Lake area. And then there's S20, which is a different location. But they all deal with working with extraterrestrials. Side by side, working with the scientists, working with other individuals. Now, I haven't heard this from any other whistleblowers. Not Randy Kramer, who's part of the military, the Mars Military Defense Force. Not Emery Smith, who's done lab work on 3,000 different alien bodies. Not anyone else that's been part of the secret space program. However, this guy has a few individuals who have done research into him and have found that his story seems to be legit. So what happens is that these individuals have looked into this guy. So Lieutenant Colonel Greg Renrich worked in these bases with 25-foot tall Nephilim, we'll call them. I like to call them Nephilim, but they're Nephilim. And he states that they told him that they were fallen angels. Not just aliens, extraterrestrials, but he states that these guys actually told him that they were fallen angels and they are going to wage a battle with God, and that they are going to win. That it's not a question, but it's a fact that they are going to win. And he said they were the enemy of God when he was down there. So he didn't really believe them. He's like, okay, whatever. But he said, but what really convinced him was the fact that the government had him sign. This is his statement. The government had him sign documentation stating that he would never use the word Jesus Christ, whether he was swearing, whether it was a cuss word, or whether he was just in general conversation about religion with somebody, that he would never use the word Jesus Christ because it would make these beings shudder, be in agonizing pain, be in fear, and that you could just never use this word in these underground military bases, these deep underground military bases, or what are called D.U.M.Bs for short. So he stated they convinced all the scientists that they were going to do this ultra-galactic war with God. They were going to win. He stated they're very intelligent, but he said that the word Jesus Christ was not allowed. Now, I know the listeners that are listening to my podcast, you may or may not be religious, and that is totally fine. I don't do the podcast, from any particular viewpoint. But when people say this, and then there's people who've done the research into this guy and backed it up, it makes you wonder, is this real? Is this something that's a legitimate thing? Now, here comes another story. There's an individual named Joe Jordan. Joe Jordan, like Michael Jordan, but just Joe Jordan. Okay? Now, he's a researcher that has researched thousands of cases regarding UFO abductions. And he states that when he's done this research and the individuals he's encountered, the ones who actually state Jesus Christ during the times of these abductions will actually block the abduction from happening. I don't know as if I 100% understand it, believe it. You know, who's to say? Because a lot of people believe that Jesus himself was actually an alien, that he could turn wine into water, that he could walk on water, or water into wine, I'm sorry, and he could walk on water, and he could heal individuals with debilitating pain, and he could actually bring people back from the dead, the Lazarus effect. And that would take, could be possible with certain types of technology that if he was an alien, he might have. So I guess at this point, you got to wonder, is it a fact that Jesus was the Son of Man, or was he an alien that is feared and has power through his words with these fallen angels? Is it only specific aliens that you can't say it around? For example, maybe it won't have an effect on the Greys, but it has an effect on these Nephilim, or maybe it might not have an effect on, the Nordics, but it might have an effect on Nephilim or the Draconians. There's not a lot of in-depth information there, but I'm going to try to get some more information from the Joe Jordan interviews as well. But this kind of leans it towards certain aliens, quote unquote, might actually be more just from another dimension that might be demonic, might be part of a dimension where God and Jesus have control. And when you invoke their name, that it has an effect on these particular individuals. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying, hey, you have to say this, you have to do this. That's what I'm saying. The potential, the possibility is there. You can make up your own mind and your own decisions. But that's kind of like, what it sounds like to me, and from what I can gather from the small amount of information here. I've been trying to do a little bit of research on Joe Jordan and his research, but I think a lot of his stuff is going to be on YouTube or maybe through podcasts. I haven't found a book yet. I was hoping to find a book, but I haven't found one yet. So we'll see. I'll come across that. But I just wanted to bring this idea up, and I may do one other podcast about it. I know this is kind of short, but if we look at the history of possessions, and we look at the history of stories of possessions and stories of exorcisms and things like that, the word Jesus, the idea of Jesus, the entity of Jesus being invoked seems to have a strong power wherever you go. And in the lightness of this particular entity, the light, the kindness, the peace that he seems to invoke around many people seems to possibly have enough power to battle some of these evil entities. Do I believe all entities are, all these aliens are evil? No, I don't think so at all. But I think maybe it could be true. Who knows? There have been statements from the CIA itself in their own documents that state that there are interdimensional travelers who are interested in Earth, but they're not necessarily trying to influence Earth. Okay? So those are straight out of CIA documents, CIA reading room documents. You can go online and look at those. But it doesn't say that they're evil. It doesn't say that they're pushing their will on us. Now, we have to keep in mind, too, the government's not always going to give us all the information that they have, right? That's going to be silly, especially if it's threatening information that could instigate riots and wars and panic and just overall upheaval of our entire lives. That's not usually the way things work. But if they already said that there's interdimensional beings and interdimensional entities, then couldn't there be potential for them to use force? You know, that's been talked about. That's been talked about in many different instances throughout the hundreds of thousands of years that, you know, human beings have been on the planet. So, it is interesting. I don't know if it's something that could work or would work, but it's a new portion of this particular UFO world that we live in. This alien, ufology interest that we all have. Wouldn't it be bizarre if there were fallen angels that are in a intergalactic battle with God or interdimensional battle with God? And if so, what are they doing working with the U.S. government? That seems bizarre. Why would the U.S. government be in cahoots with, quote-unquote, the Nephilim or fallen angels? Are they actually evil? Are they actually fallen angels? Wouldn't it be amazing to get a hand on that document, or to have somebody, get a hand on a picture of that document that they have to sign off that says you will not use the word Jesus Christ while you're working on these premises? That would be really interesting. Again, very few people have stated that this is the case. Maybe it's a hoax. Maybe not. I'm not one to tell. But I haven't seen it come up from other individuals. So I don't know. I really don't know. I guess more will have to be done in the way of research. However, this Mr. Joe Jordan seems to have done a lot of research on this particular case, and these individuals who were in the midst of an alien abduction did use the word and the name Jesus, Jesus or Jesus Christ, and these alien abductions immediately stopped. I'm sure that many people would probably try to stop these events from occurring if they could. It seems like the technology that aliens have would stop you from being able to say anything. They seem most of the time to put you in a complete trance and complete freeze so that you can't do anything anyway. I wonder if you had the capability to say the name Jesus Christ, that it would have a humongous difference in some of these particular events. I don't know, but it's interesting to talk about and interesting to think about. So I'll try to do some more research, try to bring it up and see what we can find, and we'll go from there. But what do you think? I'll try to turn on the comments section so you guys can have your say. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think, and we'll continue the research. Until next time, guys, take care of yourselves physically, spiritually, emotionally. Always have that white light around you, that protective white light. Take care of your friends and your families, your loved ones. The only way we're going to make it in this wild world is to have love with each other and take care of each other and following through in your hobbies and your goals and your dreams. If you stay stagnant in something that you're not happy with, you're not going to be fulfilled in life. You're not going to be able to move forward with where you really need to be and where you really need to go. And as always, continue to question the universe around you. Till next time, guys, light and love, and Lockdown Universe out.